Welcome to the Holistic Career Change Podcast. Spoiler alert, we don't discuss conventional, linear, boring career change here. This is the place where we talk about finding an aligned career path that feels like an extension of who you are, where you get paid for being yourself. Forget personality quizzes, soul-crushing scrolling on job sites, and breaking your brain trying to find your why. Join me and many other career changers who've changed their career holistically by first defining who they are at their core and then using this blueprint to design a fulfilling career or business. We use the mind-body-soul approach, and we take into consideration the complexity and multidimensionality of all that you are and want to represent in the world. This is where purpose-led careers are born and built. I'm your host, Vilma Oseita. Let's go. Hello, friends. Long time no speak. As per usual, I've really missed connecting with you, and I really hope that you're enjoying this beautiful hot summer or winter for those of you in Australia. Hey. Today I'm bringing another magical career changer story for you. I know how much you love these. I've received so many messages of you sharing how much, hearing the story of some of my clients who come here and so generously give us behind the scenes of how they ended up finding their aligned paths, just how much that helps you and inspires you. And I really know that this is going to be no exception to that rule, because this story is actually not a typical career change journey either. My client, Niamh, and I were joking that she's actually a career returner who ended up doing this full circle journey. She started out as a musician. She's a classically trained, talented violinist, and she completed her studies. And after some time, she actually ended up putting a pause on music, and she found work in completely unrelated fields, as I probably won't exaggerate saying that for the longest time, Niamh really felt jaded and hurt and confused about her future as a musician, and it all just felt murky and convoluted, and she definitely will share all of the details in this episode. So when Niamh decided to embark on this holistic process, we both were really open to the possibility of her perhaps finding an aligned career path in a different industry. We were both accepting that it might not be music anymore. But little did we know that this twisty and windy road towards her next career step was actually taking her back to her first true love, to her purpose, to her highest self-expression, which is music. And I love this story so, so much. And I really wanted to have Niamh to perhaps feature a different type of career journey, as I know it might resonate with some of you. There are those of you who are currently thinking that you need this big, massive change, this big transition, that whatever it is that you're doing is not working anymore. But what you actually might need to do is to heal your relationship with the path or the craft that you already have chosen before. And maybe what you need to focus on is just feeling safer and reignited that spark and excitement about pursuing it again. I'm not saying that's the story for everyone, but I'm saying that quite a few of you who will be listening to this might get a lot of inspiration from this one. And even if you're not creative, by the way, please don't tune out, because the many discoveries and aha moments that Niamh had along the way are universal, and they'll be applicable to everyone who has a brain and everyone who's a human, essentially. So in this episode, we will discuss how Niamh's identity as a musician was initially built upon external validation. And because of that, she was experiencing extreme, turbulent highs and lows, and to the point where she felt like she needed to take that break, as it eventually led her to this creative, emotional, physical burnout. And the perceived judgment that she thought that people are placing upon her was just stifling her creative expression, so she just didn't know how to continue. We will also speak about how sometimes dealing with these specific issues or challenges or internal blocks, which for Niamh was her relationship and future around music, will require us to actually go towards it in a roundabout way. So not necessarily attacking it straight away, but actually just dealing with everything that will come up on the way there, especially when we deal with something that is traumatic. We don't necessarily want to, go straight towards it because that could actually damage us much more and damage that relationship than actually helping it. We will also talk about the disconnect that Niamh felt between dreaming big because she has a lot of visions and ideas and she's a dreamer, and taking the action towards it, because what happened is that she actually needed to learn how to build a bridge towards her vision by taking the small daily steps that she had been resisting for so long. We will also talk about her transformed relationship with energy and how she used to feel tired all the time until she learned how to work, interestingly, with her mind. And when she started managing her thoughts and how she developed this life-changing skill of questioning her thoughts that previously she used to take for granted. We also speak about resistance. A lot of you feel resistance as well, and how Niamh realized that sometimes she was actually mistaking basic resistance that all of us feel when we're about to take something new with intuition. She thought that if she felt resistance, in many instances, it meant that she should not pursue things. This is such a big lesson. That alone, oh my goodness, if we could integrate that, that would change our life experiences so much. And most importantly, my favorite part, probably, well, actually, the whole episode is my favorite, but we will also talk about breaking the rules and giving ourselves permission to create new landscapes. And for Niamh, it was about recreating the musical landscape, which was, in her words, probably one of the most liberating experiences. Where now, at this point where she's at, she gets to define how, when, how much she will be working, how much she will be resting, how much she wants to be creative. All of that is on her terms. And as per usual, a reminder, please listen to this episode till the end, because Niamh gives the best advice for those of you who are seeking to change, or perhaps similarly to her, unbeknownst to you, you might be considering returning back to an old career flame. This is such a value-packed and inspirational conversation, and I really hope that you'll enjoy it. Hello, Niamh. Welcome to the podcast.
Hey, thank you for having me.
Of course. I'm so excited to have you. Every time I think of you, maybe I didn't tell you that. Every time I think of you, I imagine you as this beautiful little like Irish fairy.
Oh, oh my God, that is the dream. My WhatsApp picture is me standing in a forest playing the violin, just surrounded by like autumn leaves. So I want to be an Irish fairy.
Yeah, I feel like you are. Like that's the energy that I
Yeah.
definitely read. So that's why I really wanted to have you on a podcast. You guys, we were like, we had conversations with Niamh, because the reason why I wanted to have her is her journey is quite unique. And you'll learn
Mhm.
very soon why, because a lot of the times when people come into, career change process, a lot of the times it does entail a lot of like completely changing career, going to a different industry. Niamh's story is a little unique, and I really wanted to feature her and feature her energy, because I think even if you're not an artist, I think this story is so healing and so informative and inspiring. And we do learn a lot from hearing other people's stories. At least for me, I love storytelling. So
Mm,
you coming here and sharing your story, I'm really thankful. And I know a lot of people will benefit from that. So thank you.
yeah, thank you.
Okay, let's start. So, could you please just briefly introduce yourself to the listeners?
So my name is Niamh. I'm a violinist from Ireland. I studied classical violin for many years, first in Ireland, and then I moved to the Netherlands. And I've been living there for the past 5 years, and I'm just about to move home to Ireland again.
Yay, love it. Okay, so I usually start this conversation with like before. I love before and after myself, so I usually feature like
Mm,
and create stories like that on my podcast. So when you and I met, I think it was a year ago, right? We're like, no, a little bit less.
mm.
I think it was
A
August,
little
right?
bit more. No, no,
Oh, it was
no.
a
It
little bit
was like
more.
March, I think March, April
Yeah, okay, we started
2022. Yeah,
yeah. Okay, cool. Because we also took breaks, right? So we are meeting that
yeah.
often. Um, so when we met, I feel like the way that I would describe that when you came in, right? And the reason why you were drawn to the process is because you had essentially like hit a pause on your identity as a musician and you were not working in the field at all. You had a job in an office, yet you did feel unfulfilled and you felt like something needs to change, right?
Mm,
Um, but you were not ready to go back to the music. And I think in the initial conversation, you were like, I'm not even sure like where I stand with it, right? And how do I build my career from here?
yeah, yeah,
Um, can you talk a little more about what was happening in your life then, circumstances, how you felt, right? Like what was going on?
yeah, yeah, for sure. So, like I said, I'm a musician and I studied music, and I just always had such a fraught relationship with music. Like it was such a relationship of contrasts. I was on the one hand, it like so I was so passionate. It was like my number one passion. I was so dedicated to it. I was just all in, and it was the most important thing in my life. It kind of felt like it was my life. Um, and there were so many positive aspects. Like it was a great source of contentment and fulfillment and a great way for me to express myself, because I'm kind of more of a shy person, and it just always felt like my voice in the world or something. So it was always really important to me. But then it was always such a huge struggle as well. Like I struggled with so many aspects of it. I struggled with performing, with performance anxiety, and just general negative self-talk. Like even if I was in a practice room, I would be like really judgmental, really mean to myself. And it had become the main source of my self-worth, I think. So when things were going well, if I did a good performance, I would feel like, okay, everything is fine with the world. This is great. And then if things didn't go well, I would just crumble. Like it would be the worst thing ever. I would feel so flattened. And so that was quite confusing to have those two things at the same time. I'm so passionate about it, but it's also like such a struggle every day. And then, so like I say, I moved to the Netherlands to study, and I was doing a master's there, and the pandemic happened. And like a lot of people, I guess, I was then confronted with like free time and breathing room, and I had space to think and reflect. And I just realized I was exhausted and that I was burning out from being on this path. And I hadn't noticed it at all because I was always just like so caught up in the moment and so caught up. I was so fueled. I was so restless all the time. And I just wanted to get better and better. And then when I had time to reflect, I realized I was so exhausted. And I remember one time I was journaling. I was like trying to figure out like what is this like deep discomfort that I'm feeling around music? And the sentence I came up with was that when I play music, especially when I perform, I feel like 10% of myself. So like the other 90% is being squashed, kicked away. And that was such a revelation. And I think it was a good thing because obviously at some stage in my life, I had experience being 90, 100% of myself. So I knew that I could be better and that music or life could be better. But I realized that the way, the direction I was taking my music was not bringing me towards my full self.
Which is really, really interesting. So like you knew that the music was not leading you to the right direction. Like what we the example that we kind of or I gave, I don't remember how we came up with that, but it was a little bit like toxic relationship. Like if you would imagine you were in a toxic relationship with a partner, I feel like that was your relationship with music. Like there was love, there was lust, right? There was like this yearning, but at the same time, it was like deeply like like not functional. It wasn't a sustainable relationship just because of how much it actually cost you internally to be able
Mm,
to perform and play the music, and to your point, all the inner content that would come up when you would put
yeah,
yourself in that position. So it's almost like I would love to go back, but I can't because it's too painful for me.
yeah. It was kind of like there was a constant battle going on because obviously even when there's a lot of negative self-talk going on and a lot of, I think I was often in a fight or flight state. Definitely
Yeah.
when I was performing, I would get really anxious and I would be in fight or flight. Um, but that doesn't mean that all the positive stuff wasn't there, you know.
Hmm.
I still felt the passion, I still felt the connection, and I still had these incredible experiences of like for 5 seconds, I might actually lose myself in the music and feel like I was connecting with an audience, and that was just one of the most special experiences you can have. So it definitely did feel like a battle, and I think I I always just really cared what people thought. I mean, it comes back to the validate like the self-worth validation thing. Um, I found it impossible to like stand on stage, even to stand in a practice room and know people were listening outside, because I'm sure they were. um, I couldn't like disconnect that like certainty that people were judging me, that they're forming an opinion on me based on yeah how I played, and that just made me really tense all the time, and it really like stifled my creativity. It made it really hard for me to make mistakes, to take risks, to really be free. And like that's what you need to do as a creative person, as a musician. So yeah, it was definitely a battle, a struggle, all those things.
Mm.
Mm,
Yeah. And I think the validation piece is something that not just musicians, probably artists in general would probably can relate to that a lot,
mm,
like probably much more than your average anyone else in a different profession. But I do think a lot of us do relate to the fact that we make our work, or to your point, like performance, an extension of our identity. And like then
mm,
if we receive feedback or don't receive feedback that we think that we should because we have that manual, we take it so personally and it hurts us so deeply to the point we can like crumble down and have a complete breakdown and something doesn't go our way, or we don't get enough applause, to your point, right? Or
mm.
do you know what I mean? Like, or
Yeah,
your, I don't know, your lecturer, professor didn't give you a pat on your shoulder, and then everything just kind of becomes like blurry and painful. It's so hard
yeah,
to live life like that.
yeah, for sure. And I think basically all the time I was studying that I was really in this intense space of music, especially classical music. I really believed that there's a right and a wrong way to do things, like
Mm.
as if there's a right and a wrong way to be a person, you know. And the funny thing about the validation was that, of course, it was nice if people like gave me a pat on the back, if I got a good grade in an exam or something. But actually, I know I was always looking for external validation, but it was via myself. Like I didn't really care what people would say. I just assumed that I knew what they would say. So if I performed,
Ooh, so
yeah,
good.
right, yeah, like if I performed well, I would know I had performed well, and I would think, okay, that's fine. Like people will accept that, and it'll be okay, and I'll be allowed to be a musician, and I'll be allowed to be loved.
How
And then
interesting. Yeah.
yeah, if I did a bad performance, I would just assume that everyone in the audience had been as traumatized and like absolutely.
You traumatized the audience. You made
Yeah.
them figure out what's going on.
Like heightened emotions just want to be swallowed up by the ground. I would assume that everyone had the same opinion as I did, and that everyone heard the same things that I do. And then even if someone came up to me after a performance and said, that was really emotional, I really connected, I would just like I wouldn't dismiss it, but it wouldn't make me feel any better. I would think,
Yeah.
no, I'm not valid, I'm not good enough, I'm not
Yeah.
worthy,
Yeah.
all
You
those
would
things.
probably think they're being nice.
I would think they're being nice, and actually I didn't really care because I was my own best judge, really. I listened to my judgmental voice before anything else. So
Yeah. It's
yeah,
so, I think so many of us can relate to that. And I love how you said that you, you like assumed and you didn't even know that you were assuming. You knew, right? You're like, okay, if I make a mistake or it wasn't my best performance, everyone will know and everyone will hate me. And like you had
yeah.
no ability or no witness within you to look at that voice and be like, what if that's not true? Like, I'm not
Mm,
God. I cannot know what other people think, but that's what that voice does to us.
yeah. And that was constant. And I think because so I always had a teacher, like a one-on-one teacher, my whole way through college and also as a child, and they're so important because they are the ones that give you the feedback that you need to hear. They give you the honest feedback, and even if I messed up a performance, my teacher would always be able to say, "But you know, this thing has improved. This thing is so much better." And I think I like emotionally, I found it really hard to believe what my teacher was saying, but I guess I did. I learned to trust that, you
Mm,
know, she did have my best interests at heart and that she was going to be honest with me.
mm.
But yeah, I would say there was a lot of like cognitive dissonance there. Like even back then, I knew that I had to like try and remove myself from this really judgmental voice, but it was just so hard.
Yeah, because it was a monster for so many years since you were little, right? And that was
Yeah.
part of that like really toxic again relationship with yourself.
Mm,
Okay, cool. This is really fascinating. I want to talk a little bit more about like classical music space, but maybe we can cover
mm,
that a little later. Let's not go there just yet. So when you came in and we started the process, we had a lot of answers. We have a lot of questions. We didn't have a lot of answers, and we were sort of open, right? You were open to for music to still be the answer. You were open for something else to still be the answer.
yeah.
And what we did, just like as we do in this process, which sometimes is very interesting for people because they think that is going to be much more like strategy and resume. And it really is, especially when we start out, a lot more of like dealing with whatever comes up for healing. Because when we enter
Mm,
this container, things will come up for healing. And sometimes these seem unrelated. So I feel like
yeah.
with you, when you came to this process, we didn't even touch music at first. We didn't even talk about music because I felt like there was so much resistance. So much, remember, you would like almost like just be like, let's not go to music yet. You would not want
Yeah.
to get coached on that. You were just not ready. Like there was so
Yeah.
much block and it was locked in Pandora's box somewhere deep, deep within you, just because of all of those experiences that you had. You parts of you wanted to protect you from going there, right? So we let it be there. And what we did, as opposed to like going directly to the topic, we started just working with things that were coming up. And since you mentioned validation, maybe that's the piece we can continue on. I think that validation as a measure of worthiness was something that you and I spoke about quite a lot, especially when you started your, or maybe started investing more time in your side gig, right? And maybe you
Yeah.
can tell people about your little business, which is so lovely and cute. And so the validation there, and you realizing that if you don't get the feedback that you want, if you don't get the like, if you don't get the sale, if you don't get the applause, that is completely unrelated to your worthiness and you sharing your gifts. Like you can share your gifts in spite of whether you get the feedback that you want or not. And sometimes you won't get
Mm,
it, and sometimes it will be unexpected. So talk to me a little
yeah.
bit about that. What was that journey for you like?
Yeah, for sure. So my little side business is I adore reading and I really like sewing as well. So I decided to start sewing book sleeves, which are like laptop sleeves for books. And I was just really excited about it. It was just like a little passion project. But I was excited to see where I could take it, and I wanted to do all the marketing and Instagram and packaging and production, everything. And it was a really nice thing to focus on because I had no prior experience. I had no like history, no trauma attached to it. So it was a really nice thing to use to like figure out my process and like how I can be creative and share things. And yeah, it is funny. One time we were talking about Instagram, and I was saying like I really like Instagram, but anytime I go to write a post, I can't stop thinking about what's on the other end. That people will see it and the people will judge it. And I guess we realized that this was me seeking external validation. And you told me like you can just pre-validate yourself. You don't have to rely on anyone else for validation. And oh my god, that was like the penny really dropped with me there. Like, wow, I have a choice. I can choose whether I'm good enough or not. I can choose whether I'm worthy or not. Because before that, especially in the music world, I really thought you don't have a choice. Like you're either good enough or you're not, and that's it. And someone else decides. You either do things the right way or the wrong way. and it's not in your power. Like I felt like the only power I had was to try and get better, like to work harder. So then, yeah, within this like safe little sleeve space, I realized that, yeah, even something as simple as writing an Instagram post, I can say in advance, like, this is really fun. I really enjoyed taking these pictures and I really enjoyed writing this caption, and I'm good. I'm happy with this. I'm just gonna send it out into like the Instaverse and and then it doesn't matter. It's like I've let it go and it doesn't matter anymore. And that's such a simple example, but it definitely uh, like I started practicing that way of thinking, and it definitely started like sinking into my whole way of being.
Yeah, it's like we
Mm.
found a little kind of like to your point, like a safe place for you, like a little safe home where you didn't have any like prejudgment or like previous judgment. And then
Mm.
what started happening to your point, like the only thing that we would talk about, the only thing that you need to care about and ask yourself is like, am I having fun? Does it feel expansive? Do I like this post? And then that's it. That's done. You release it. And if you get the likes, if you get the comments, that's a nice bonus. That's a nice cherry on top of the cake. But we don't expect of it. We don't refresh and check the likes or sales or whatever, because that is abusive to me, right? I
Mm.
cannot continue to literally judge my worthiness based on the responses that I get or don't get. Like I'm repeating myself, but like I think that it was such a beautiful experiment. And I love that you got to see that real time and practice it because that's a skill. A lot of the times people think they
Mm.
either have it or don't. No, it's a skill. The more you do it, the more you ease into that. And then they can start bleeding in other areas of your life as well.
Yeah, for sure. And so then actually, yeah, I did practice it and I wasn't thinking about music at all at that stage. And then a few months ago, I started coming around to it again, thinking about it again, and I realized that my perspective had really shifted. Like I was suddenly able to apply these new ideas around validation and worth.
Mhm.
I felt like I could apply them to music, and a few things I think I realized it started coming up for me really strongly that music is so important to me, and it does kind of feel like the reason I'm here. It does feel like part of my path, and instead of I think I always knew that, but I used to feel almost guilty that like, well, then I should be better, then I should be succeeding more. Like, why aren't I succeeding if this is my
Mm.
thing? And I realized I really switched my perspective, and I started feeling almost like I really want to share. I almost feel obliged to share what I have with people. And when I start from that space, when I feel like, no, it like worth doesn't even come into it, then it's like, this is what I'm here to do and I'm going to do it. And a huge sort of epiphany that I had was I had always lived in the music space, like the music landscape, and I just assumed that that is the world, that you have to follow the landscape, you have to like there are preset paths and you can make your own path, of course, but you always have to live in a world that's already been established. And suddenly with these new ideas, I realized actually no, that's not true. There's like one little landscape that I lived in for many years as a classical musician, but there's actually like the whole rest of the universe. And I can create my own landscape and I can decide how I want to feel as a musician, what I want to think, like who I want to invite in, which steps I want to take forward. And like to say that was liberating is like such an understatement, but it really felt like I just felt suddenly so grounded, so connected, and so inspired and energetic. And I felt like it's something I was always aware of, but I couldn't articulate it. But I always just felt so powerless within the music space
Yeah.
because I wanted to be able to be myself and to share what I have, but I just felt like I always had to fit myself in somehow and that I just couldn't. And then yeah, I suddenly realized that I just create my own space. And of course it's going to overlap with other people and with other musicians, but when I start from my own space, I just feel so much more empowered and yeah, very valid.
Excited and flowy, right? And I think that is something when you say it like
Yeah.
that, like you probably hear yourself speak now, and then there are parts of you that like, duh, well, obviously you always have an ability to create your own musical landscape. But I think for the
Mm.
longest time, that wasn't like embodied knowing. Like you maybe knew some other people can do it. Remember, I think like even one of the exercises that I asked you to do at the very, very beginning was to research like musicians who were, who are having fun, but also making good money and kind of reinventing the rules. And I think you didn't, I don't know, I don't know if you remember. I think you couldn't even
Yeah,
finish this because I think you got triggered.
I definitely got triggered. I think there were a few people. There was there's a band I really like, and I just started watching them, and I just started getting really angry for some reason. Like, how dare they have so much fun?
Oh my gosh, I love it.
And yeah, I don't remember my exact thoughts either, but I definitely found it triggering to see people who were like breaking the rules and doing their own thing and breaking
Mm.
away. Yeah,
Because
for
you never
sure.
allowed yourself to break the rules. I was literally coaching a client about that
No.
yesterday. When we get triggered and angry at someone expressing or breaking the rules or being authentic, and if we have a strong reaction, it's only because it's reflecting that I have suppressed that part within me. So if I
Mm,
am not doing that, why do they do that? Who do they think they are to be able to
yeah,
do this? Right? Like,
yeah, absolutely.
yeah.
And something I was reflecting on, like I know the whole thing with institutions, for better or worse, is that they are sort of mainstream a lot of the time, and they give you this mainstream education, and then it's up to you to figure out what to do with it. But I was, I just, maybe from a young age, I just felt like I had to be a good girl. I believed in that everyone who was telling me what to do knew what they were talking about. And one of the
Yeah,
things that,
as you
right?
do. Yeah, as you do.
Yeah. One of the things that came up for me recently was that when I was studying, I was in the space that celebrated certain things and sort of lauded certain things. So if you were on a specific track, you were doing really well, like in competitions and auditions, you could perform really well. Then you were not only celebrated, but you were given like leadership opportunities and opportunities to travel and to you had this like tangible success. And to me, like when I started as an 18-year-old, I was not going to like look down another path that had like no success or no people applauding, applauding. And I do think, I mean, I think it's a bit sad that I think if I had been given opportunities at the time to be a leader or to thrive in another way, then I could have come to where I am now a lot quicker. But then I wouldn't have had this journey. So
100%. Like
mm.
there is a reason why we go through these like, challenges and blocks. Um, I want to talk about another pattern that we uncovered for you, and that I think was also in the process of you building your business, right, with the sleeves. And that was about taking action. And I think for you, it was
Mm.
especially very, I think, very strongly expressed your relationship with action because it almost felt like, and you'll be able to add all the juicy details, but it almost felt like whenever I would bring that idea, which I do, and my clients who listen to this podcast, you guys know, I'll always ask you to try things, to have projects, to collect data, to test it out, to like loosen up a little bit, right? And for you, when I suggested or when we discussed about okay, let's invest a little more into sleeves, right? The resistance that came up, and which we realized as a pattern that was controlling a lot of areas of your life was, well, that does not seem big enough. If I'm already investing energy into something, it has to be big and impactful and massive. I don't want to like start just a small little business, right? And so
Yeah.
that was the disconnect between dreaming really big and wanting to live this beautiful, glorious life. And at the same time, resisting to take the action, which I would assume create a lot of stuckness and sort of
Mm.
dreaming, but never feeling like you're moving towards something tangible.
Yeah. That's exactly where I was. I mean, that's really why I reached out to you because I was so frustrated by myself. I wanted to take action. I could see my dreams, or at least some of them. And sometimes I would kind of start and then I would just like run back into my little hidey hole. I think I was really stuck, definitely in this like all or nothing, black or white way of thinking. And I was able to observe like the space I was in and visualize where I wanted to be. But in my head, I just thought like all these little in between steps. Firstly, I can't see them, I don't know what they are. And secondly, they're so small and insignificant that it's just not worth my time. Taking the small steps, taking a risk as well, being willing to fail. I just wanted to be able to take some big, drastic, perfect action that would bring me to where I needed to be. For a really long time, definitely since I was a teenager, I was just always able to be in control of my actions. And I think it kind of worked. Like I say, being in an institution, you're sort of handheld and you're brought along and opportunities are placed in front of you. So you don't really have to take that much initiative. You don't have to really take that many risks. I mean, you can, but you don't have to. And I think I was so used to being in control and to being able to think about the next step and really think about it and reflect on it and weigh up the risks. And so in a way that sort of worked for me. But then a few years ago I graduated college, and like there was the whole thing with the pandemic and taking a break, and suddenly there was no framework there for me. There was nobody like holding my hand and leading me on. And so yeah, it was just kind of terrifying to take those small steps and to not know where it was going to lead. Another thing is that I had a belief that so taking action requires energy. And well, that's true, but I believe that it required way more energy than it actually does. And so
Mm.
if I thought about taking a small action and not knowing if it's going to lead me directly to my big dream, to me, sometimes the risks seem too great. Like, I'm going to put all this energy into something and it mightn't even lead anywhere, and then I'll be tired. That's really like my train of thought, and I would really just bring myself around in circles. Um, but yeah, so with the sleeves, we were talking one day about money, and I was saying I do want to increase my income, and maybe I could increase my income through selling sleeves. And I did like a quick calculation. I thought, well, I could sell like 6 or 8 a week and then this many a month. And then I could probably make like €400 per month extra. And then immediately I was like, but that's not even close to what I want to be making. And I immediately just dismissed €400. Like, why wouldn't I want €400? Because I felt like if it's only a part of the whole, then what's the point? It's like I just couldn't
Mm.
see past this next step. And it felt like I'm going to put so much energy into it, and it's not even going to get me to where I want to be. And so basically, I had a choice between €0 extra per month and 400 extra euro per month. And I wanted to go with zero because it felt easier. And it felt like, at least if I'm at zero, then I can dream that I'm making,
Mm.
€1,000 extra per month. So that's what was going on in my brain.
Yeah, so
Yeah.
powerful. And I love that example. And I think in the end, we coached on like, listen, 400 is actually better than zero. But I think what you were describing is so powerful because so many people, we lead our lives a lot of the times where we're making misaligned decisions. And if we're making misaligned decisions, working in misaligned places, doing misaligned things, that is an energy drain. It depletes us. So we assume that when we start working towards our dreams, is going to be the same scenario of, to your point, right? Like I have this amount of units of energy per day. This is how much I need for work, for day job. This is how much I need for my self care. And then if I do this, I'll literally deplete myself and run out of energy. But what we forget to think about is when we're moving towards more aligned spaces, and action gives energy back. Right. So an action
Yeah.
can also be energy producing, which we don't know. A lot of us never experience that until we start like pivoting and taking control of our narratives. And we'll talk about thought work because that was big also energy
Mm,
releaser when you started like working with your thoughts a little more. But to your point, so many people do this is like, well, if I'm not going to be a millionaire in this first like business venture, I don't think I'm going to waste my time. What it actually
yeah.
is a very elaborate protective mechanism where I'm failing ahead of time. So I wouldn't have to go through potential sense of failure or incompetence or whatever it is that I'm afraid of because we're afraid to feel, right? That's always
Yeah.
what we're trying to avoid. So let me just stay in my little dream world and continue dreaming of taking over the world as this super cool violinist, right? And like making, billions of dollars. And that
Hmm.
feels safer. That feels safer. But my life doesn't change, but I still kind of, it's a familiar place.
Yeah, for sure. And actually, like coming back to the energy, and yes, at the time I was in a job that was draining my energy, certainly not giving me energy. But actually, even before that, even though music and like being creative does give me energy, like I said, I was coming at it from sort of the wrong place. I was coming at it,
Yeah.
I was like really fueled by a need for success and a need for validation. And I think even in that, I wasn't getting energy from a very good place all the time. So yeah, I was just totally used to having to conserve my energy, to that it was all or nothing, and that was the only choice.
Is like validation energy is like fast food energy. Like it will give you
Yeah.
some energy, right? But it also gonna fuck up your body and that's the same time.
Yeah.
And then you're gonna be
Yeah,
hungry very quickly
completely.
right after.
Yeah,
This is
for
a good
sure.
example, as I'm
And
proud of
like
myself.
literally hungry.
Yeah, you're like always hungry. Exactly.
Yeah. Yeah.
This is so good. I think a lot of people will be able to relate to that. Let's talk a little bit more about that aggressor that lived in your head, like rent free, right? Um, Quite a few probably we have all kinds of different gremlins. And one, I think for you, one of the biggest breakthroughs, and I really want to honor you because I think you did like took thought work on like really diligently as much as you could, as much as you had space
Mm.
to start working in and little by little unpacking what was actually controlling your mind. Because the thing with gremlins is that when we leave them be, what they do is they just collect historical data. They look at all the past experiences, they package them up, and they throw them in our face continuously, telling us, well, you've never succeeded before. Who tells you that you can do this? I don't know anyone who did that. You are not someone who will be able to do that. And basically, this
Mm.
is how they keep us stuck. Well, just one example, right? But a lot of the times they can't dream. They just use past information, right? And past experiences and be like, well, can't go back to music because that's what happened, without giving you space to realize that, to your point, you can create this new landscape, right? So
Mm.
I think for you, one of the biggest jobs at the beginning was to start discerning between what is the actual belief, what is the thought error, what is objectively true, because all of it was kind of one big ball of mess taking over and
Yeah.
overwhelming you, right? And I think you also mentioned like also discerning between what's my resistance and what's my intuition. That was a big piece for you,
Mm.
right? So
Yeah, that
share
is
a little
huge.
more about what you can share about that journey for you.
Yeah, I do think that thought work was probably the biggest shift I had in our work together. Definitely when we started working together, my thoughts were a huge, big jumble. I wasn't new to thought work. I've always journaled a lot. I've got better and better over the years at identifying thoughts. But you're right, I wasn't really able to discern between what was just a belief, what was like a gremlin shoving itself in my face. And you gave me this amazing exercise to like break everything down, um, like to be able to look at a thought and see how it created a feeling and how that influenced an action that created a result in real life. And at the start, I was having trouble like differentiating between what's a circumstance and what's a thought. So a circumstance being something that's completely neutral, like I am a musician. But I would come up with a circumstance that was like, I hate playing in orchestras. And you'd gently be like, well, no, that's actually a thought. And I would think, well, I mean, that's irrefutable. It's true. Anyone would say that. I hate playing in orchestras. It's really triggering to me. And I wasn't able, it took me a while to figure out that that is just a thought. It doesn't matter how true it is, but it's a thought and it's going to create a feeling like anxiety and overwhelm. And then that feeling is going to inspire an action of just like going to bed and eating snacks or something. So then that was my first time seeing the direct link between what I'm thinking and my reality. Like the thought is, I don't like orchestras. My reality is that I'm not doing any healing work on my music and I'm just like lying around eating snacks or whatever. And the next step in that journey, like I was able to finally sort of take that on board. And then the next step would be to try and replace that thought with maybe a more neutral thought or a better thought. And I think I struggled with that for a while because I kind of just wanted to hold on to the previous thoughts. I kind of thought, well, they're true. It's true that even if it's just a thought, it's true that I don't feel good enough as a musician or that I'm not enjoying playing in an orchestra. And there was some part of me that was really fighting to hold on to that. And we had a great conversation about it. You told me a story, and at the end, the message that I got was that, like, yes, basically, sometimes life is hard, and sometimes it's true that things are difficult, but we can always ask ourselves, is this thought helping me? And is it serving me? Um, like, wow. And that was really huge. A lot of the little epiphanies that I've had kind of led on to something else, but this specific one has just stayed with me basically every day since that, like, wow, I can actually question every thought and ask if it's serving me, if it's really helping me.
Yeah.
And um, to be able to look at a thought like, I don't feel good enough as a musician, even if it feels really true, and to ask it if it's serving me. If it says no, it feels like then I'm just able to peacefully let go with it and like part with it. And it's like the fight goes out of the thought or something. Like
Mm,
it's like, oh, actually, no, I don't have anything to say other than that I don't feel good enough
interesting.
as a musician, and so
Yeah.
I'm just going to leave now. And that just really, really freed me up to be able to choose the thoughts I want to have. Because yeah, like you said, I guess I did put a lot of work into the thought work, into
Yeah.
figuring this stuff out. At the start, it really was like a huge jumbled mess of thoughts. And now I feel like I'm in a place where I don't really have to go through this exercise of like, how do I feel? What's my action? I feel like I can notice the thought and then straight away ask it, like, are you helping me right now?
Mm,
And if it doesn't, I feel I can make a choice to think something that is helping me to get to where I want to be. Um, so
yeah.
yeah, that's like life changing. That's
That
a
is
really
life
huge
changing.
shift.
And you really took
Yeah.
it on so beautifully. I'm really glad that you did. And I think that's what
Mm.
allowed you to be in the space that you're in today. And to your point, a
Yeah.
lot of the times people will like they think that with thought work, we should go into toxic positivity and deny the
Mm.
reality. Right. And then they're like, no, but I do hate playing an orchestra. Why are you telling me to not think that? That's my truth. Like, and I think the huge shift that happens and you experience that for people is like, I'm not arguing about your reality or your opinion. You have the right to think and believe whatever the F you want. Like you're the boss of your life and of your head. But what we are doing is we are recognizing that if we choose to keep certain thoughts that drain our energy, that make us demotivated, that makes us sad, that makes us helpless, we are not helping ourselves. So then it's like,
Mm.
doesn't even matter if something is objectively true. Then to your point, the only question remains, well, if now I feel like I have a lot to do and my thought that I'm keeping is I'm so overwhelmed, I'm so overwhelmed, I'm so annoyed, I always run out of time. Like even if it's
Mm.
objectively true, but does it serve me to keep on thinking that, or does it serve me to think, yes, I have a lot of things to do, so I'm just going to focus on one thing at a time. And then I instantly ground and I instantly calm down. So even if I still have 500 things on my to do list, I can get them done then just because I choose to drop the thoughts that were creating anxiety and overwhelm for me.
Yeah, completely.
Yeah. So, and then I think another piece with the fall work. So for you, that was huge where you just took it on and you ran with it and you were just changing your thoughts and really questioning everything. So you can go much, much deeper. And one of the pieces that I want to highlight, I think for you was when you also realized that you don't have to resist resistance because there are, especially at the beginning, right? You were resisting resistance where I'm like, well, or to another point, like considering resistance, treating resistance as a sign that you should not go somewhere.
Yeah. Yeah, really. So um yeah, maybe I can share it. So I have made some huge changes this year. Like I was in the Netherlands, I was there for 5 years. I was working in this job. And when I left Ireland 5 years ago, I kind of couldn't wait to get out. And
Mm,
obviously I love Ireland so much, but I think I really wanted the independence. I wanted to go out and like have my own adventure, but also I just felt like I could be so much more free when I was away from all of the just dynamics and memories of where I'd grown up. I just felt a bit held back by it. I'm sure many people have this experience, you know. And so even when like the pandemic happened and I decided to take a break and I decided to like start working in this job, even though I was struggling, I was always like, no, but I'm not going to go home. I just need to like fight it out here. And I don't think that was a bad decision. I think it's fine. I think it was kind of meant to happen. Um, but sort of suddenly a few months ago, well, a few things happened. Well, my grandmother died, and I was suddenly really surrounded by family in a way that I hadn't been for a while, and it just felt like slipping into a warm bath or something. I had
Mm,
forgotten what it's like to be really surrounded by family and community. And I was also doing a course that was kind of on the Irish language and Irish culture, and I was able to connect to it in a way that I never had before. And I realized that it's actually so special and so important to me and something I want to value and to cherish and to champion. And those things kind of happened in quick succession. So I suddenly realized like I think I'm going to move home like as soon as possible. And obviously it took a few months, so I had to decide to leave my job and figure out the logistics of moving home, and I had to find a new job. And so we had obviously it's a career change program, so we were talking a lot about career, but we were also talking a lot about the thought work and all the other things. And suddenly I was faced with the challenge of putting it to the test, I guess,
mm,
and finding a new job at home. And I really had a lot of resistance. I I was it was possible for me to look for a similar job to what I was already doing because I had experience, because it was kind of easy to just send off CVs for an office job. And I just felt so much resistance. And anytime I would sit down and make my CV, like my whole body would kind of recoil and say, but no, this isn't what I want to do, and this isn't right for me. And I just felt like intuitively this is not for me. And maybe that was partly true because obviously I want to do the most creative things, but I was really struggling with I would trust my resistance as though it were intuition, and I would
mm.
use it as an excuse to not take any action. And like, bearing in mind, I said that I approached you because I was really struggling with action, and we had already done a lot of work on it, but it was like this final test or something
There's
that like
always a
finally
final
now,
test.
yeah.
There's always a final test.
Like finally I'm trying to put this into action. I'm trying to get a job, but my brain was coming up with really good excuses, like really creative, really well thought out excuses for not going down this road. And so we discussed resistance and I dived into it a bit, and I realized that I had a lot of fear. I was just really fearful about making a mistake. Again,
Mm,
it's a little bit about like the energy, being afraid to waste energy and feeling like my energy is limited or something. But I think I just felt like the worst thing I can possibly do is get a job and then hate it and then make a mistake. You know, I felt like that would just crush me for some reason. And I was living in such a place of fear, and I was so like tightly coiled. I was so like wound up. And I guess because I wasn't aware of this fear and these thoughts, like my brain kind of just bypassed the option to go into the fear and to like take the risk or whatever.
mm.
Um, but then it was quite exciting to realize that, because I realized that actually it's amazing to take a risk and it's amazing to make a mistake, because then like
Yes.
you know so much more, and you know okay, so that's not the path for me, and I've learned something, and now I'm going to make a much more informed decision for the next step.
Yeah, like normalizing that. And I love that you say that like at some point, like it did take you over, and then that you managed to kind of unpack it
Mm,
and see exactly what's going on. And I love when you said that I was, yeah, to your point, like a lot of people do that, which is treating resistance as intuition and just listening to
Mm.
it a lot of the times. This is just actual basic bitch, I'm sorry, fear, like primal, primitive fear. And we're like, my intuition is telling me I should not apply or I should not do that. And to your point, a lot of the times it's
Yeah.
just not true. And so we need to be vigilant sometimes when we work with that beautiful instrument that we have, which is our brain.
Mm.
Okay, so
Yeah.
since we went there, sorry, did you want to add something?
Well, maybe you were going to bring this up, but when I finally faced my resistance and was like, okay, I can do this. I can send out some CVs. I then started questioning some other resistance that I had. And one of the career options that we had discussed quite a few times was teaching violin.
Mm.
I had said that I wasn't sure about it because I had done it before and I found it kind of tiring. I felt really unsure of myself. I didn't know if I was good enough. um, but I really wanted to like set up my own teaching studio and be self-employed. And I had just completely shut off the option of looking for a job in a school, like looking for a job that was already there. Um, and then when I opened myself up, when I like faced the resistance and decided, yeah, I guess I could send some CVs, I kind of thought, I mean, I could also just send some CVs to like music schools. It's actually very much aligned with me. It's like what I love to do, what I studied. It's not the same as diving all the way back into music and being a performer. It's like it's a very different environment. And finally, I decided, yeah, I'm gonna go for it. And I sent off some CVs, and like I think within an hour, someone emailed me back and said, "Hey, let's do an interview this week."
Yeah, universe is
um,
always like that. When it's aligned, the universe responds really quickly. Yeah.
yeah, yeah. It's kind of funny as well. Like I think I dismissed the option sometimes because it felt too easy. Also because it was something I had done before and I was really kind of scared to go back to something that I had been in before. I think I was scared to go back because it felt like it'll be the same experience. And my experience before was that I didn't feel like I was thriving in that space. I didn't really feel confident. But then I realized, wait a minute, I'm creating my own landscape. I'm in a way, way, way more like powerful, inspired, energetic space. And so even if I'm working in a music school, I can approach it from the space of like, I have something to say, I have something to share. I want to share what I have with people. Like that's one of my main passions and goals as a person and as a musician. And I realized like, wow, like it just completely flips it around for me. It goes from being like kind of small and scared and trying to fit into what other people want, like we discussed, to yeah, okay, I will be employed, but I will just be like flourishing and like
Mm,
bestowing all my knowledge and everything on these little
yeah.
kids, whether they like it or not.
Yeah. And that's some
um,
powerful reframes that you just walked us through. Right.
yeah, yeah,
Yeah.
it was really powerful, and now I'm really excited. It feels like a really it was actually really nice. Like we finished working together just after I got the job offer, and
Yeah.
I was like really in the last stages of moving home, and it really feels like a beautiful way to like to close our time together that I
Yeah.
came
Our
back to.
time and that
Yeah,
chapter as well.
yeah, I was able to find a way to come back to music and to do it from a really empowered space. And yeah, I'm really excited about all the things that are coming up for me.
Yeah, me too. I love that. I love that you also like you're bringing that same the musical landscape, you're bringing it to everything, to your relationship with Ireland. You get to decide because a lot of the times, again, you felt like, oh, if I'm coming back, I almost need to fit in and subscribe to things that perhaps I don't resonate with or parts of your,
Mm.
Irish culture. Like you would make jokes about Dublin sometimes, which I find hilarious. Right. But it was like, no, you're coming back like from the little things of like where am I going to live and how am I going to live to who am I going to hang out with and like what work am I going to do is all
Mm.
you creating it for yourself. So can you share a little more as well, just the details, the tangible? So you ended up accepting the offer from the school, and I think you agreed to like
Yeah.
a couple of days a week so you have more time for yourself. I want you to share about that because people sometimes forget that they get to decide and they think like, oh, it was just an offer, I need to
Mm.
take it, and the rest of my life is going to be like recovering from work. So share like how you are devising this plan for yourself.
Yeah, for sure. So I was offered 4 days. Actually, first 4.5 days, but in the interview I said, okay, no, four. And then I really thought about it, and something just didn't sit right with me. Like, obviously, it's amazing to be offered a full-time job, but I thought, no, having gone through this whole process, I know it's really important to me to have time for other things, like to work on my book sleeve business and also to work on my own musicianship and any other creative ideas that come up. So I asked for 3 days, and the manager of the school agreed. And so I'm just really excited about that because I feel like up until now, so I was studying, and obviously that's not really work, but it's like full-time commitment. And while I was studying music, it was like almost 24/7 just being really in it and pouring all my energy into it. So I think I established that that didn't work for me. And then I did this other job that was in an office that was really like misaligned, and that also didn't work for me. And it was really great to have the opportunity to set up myself and my career like exactly as I want it to be. So I now have a really steady job that will obviously provide a good income for me. And then I get to use the other however many, like, well, 4 days, but obviously I'll rest a bit. I get to use the rest of the week to really expand myself in other ways and to expand my little sleeve business, which I'm quite excited about jumping into
Yeah.
again now. And to give time to my music. I think so. We worked a lot as well on how draining my previous job was. That was this, it took like months, I think, where we only talked about like, I just can't stand it, and all the people are so annoying and they think they're better than me.
I remember. Listen, this is something everyone will relate to. Every single client. This is a big chunk of our work together where they're like, I just hate it, And then I
Yeah.
remember you even had this thing where like made me laugh so much where you're like, sometimes I'll look at people who are not creative and I see them as like a little bit less than. Do you remember that
Yes.
piece? That made me laugh so much.
Yeah. Like what are they doing with their lives? They're just like making a lot of money every month, selling stuff, but like why? Why would they not want to be creative?
Oh my gosh, I
um,
love that.
but it was so great that we got to work on that because I realized obviously when it comes down to it, it's always a reflection on me, like how I feel, how I react. And working with these different archetypes, like the dominant people and the annoying people, I don't know. um, there's like so much to learn, and there was so much for me to learn. And it even got to a point where, even though I still wasn't getting any life from the work I was doing, I felt quite neutral and it stopped really draining me. So, I mean, that was amazing.
Yeah.
Um, what was the question?
I don't know. I'm a great host, you guys. I forgot what we were talking about. I was just in the moment with you.
I had an amazing point, obviously.
I believe you.
um,
But what I wanted to say was that what I think is cool is that you're gonna have like your teaching job, right? So you have a little bit of structure. I just released a podcast, the previous part about masculine, feminine. So that's gonna be your masculine, your container,
mm,
protector in terms of finances and just having, interaction with humans and testing some, I don't know, ideas or your teachings the way that you want to. Like it's a
mm,
beautiful like testing ground for you as well. It's a playground for you because a lot of the times people are like, oh, a job is just a job. It's like, no, you're getting paid to play, you're getting paid to test, and then you can take all of that beautiful data and bring it to your business, your sleeve business, and bring it to your private practice because you also want to, at some point, right, have your own private practice where you
mm.
dictate all the rules as well.
Yeah, yeah, for sure. I think I really feel that I get quite excited about the idea of being self-employed. Like eventually down the line, that is my vision to have my own private teaching studio and then see where my sewing, where my book sleeves lead, and then obviously to see where I can bring music. And I did have some resist. Part of the resistance I had towards looking for a job in the music school here was that I really kept saying to myself, but you've known for so many years that what you really want is to be self-employed. What you really want is to like
Yeah.
have that power and that independence to do things exactly the way you want to do them. And if I if I didn't know better, if we hadn't done this work, I think I would have really listened to that, and I would have ended up in some really unenjoyable job just because I would feel like I can leave at any time. It's really independent. I don't have to really put myself into it. Like I think I feared putting my energy and myself and like my soul into something that wasn't mine and that I didn't have control over. Um, but obviously, it's an amazing first step towards building up my own teaching studio. It is an amazing, like, stable source of income. It's a great way to meet people, and yeah, I mean, it's basically the perfect job to go
Yeah.
into, and it just took me a while to realize that. And actually, funnily enough, um, one of the last journal entries I sent you. So like throughout the whole year, I've been sending you journal entries, and one of the last ones was like, I just don't get it. Like I I feel like I don't really have a dream anymore. I feel like I don't really know what I want. I'm just gonna go with things, but it's not my dream job. And you were kind of like, whoa, hold on a minute. Isn't this literally your dream job? And yeah, like even at that last minute, my brain was able to come in and say, but it's not actually like that independent. It's not, you won't be self-employed. It's not that great
And
actually.
talking you out of
Um,
it, feeling ahead of
yeah,
time. Yeah.
yeah. Um, but actually it is really great. And
It's a beautiful
yeah.
segue, definitely. And I really want to like honor what you said and share and like give a last bit of coaching, which is like your business can happen, like your studio can happen much sooner than you think if you believe that it
Hmm,
can happen like soon, right? Because sometimes we will
yeah,
take the job and we'll be like, well, one day my dream is to have this. Is like literally could start in 6 months if you wanted to.
yeah,
3 months if you wanted to, right? You could already
yes.
start forming it and setting the foundation for it if you choose to, right? So again,
Mm,
being very mindful not to leave it to, well, one day that's my dream. I'm like, why not work on your dream now?
yeah,
But of
yeah,
course, I think for
absolutely.
you and your character and your blueprint, I think definitely having the teaching job is a beautiful way to enter back into the musical world without the heaviness of just your own inner narrative and the heaviness of the classical world.
Mm, yeah, definitely, for sure.
Yeah.
Yeah, I'm really excited. It's an exciting place to be, and it's even like you saying that. I'm like, ooh, yes, I could actually start my own teaching business in 3 months.
Yes. There
Yes.
you go. You can. Absolutely. And I think the final point that I wanted to share is that I think I see you a little bit, and we touched upon it in our last session. I see you a little bit as someone now that you've gone through this whole full circle, the whole journey of like really unpacking the resistance and your relationship with music and understanding better and being able to get to the core of your relationship, which is love and wanting to self-express
Mm,
and like create and share from that pure space without being clouded by the fears and validation and the rules, right, that you had put upon yourself unconsciously a lot of the times. So you kind of going through that journey also see you the other side of what you do is just by existing. I think you will also be that lighthouse or the light for other maybe musicians who are still stuck in that world who think they need to play by the book and who also similar to you probably feel stifled but they don't know any better.
yeah, yeah, for sure. And I remember us talking about this, like we had spoken a few times about the fact that I feel like there's like music, and then on top of it, there's layer after layer after layer after layer, like miles high. And I always felt like, well, I just need to dig my way through it. I need to figure out one thing at a time. And then when I realized that I have so many choices and that I can create my own landscape and that I can, yeah, I can totally decide where I want to go with music, it felt like I went straight to the core of it and I was able to
Yeah.
get past all those layers. And obviously, it's such a work in progress. Like I have to, I still have to do the work. I still have to do healing. I still have to practice all these things that I've learned and that I have already put into practice with like book sleeves and teaching. But it is really exciting to think that I'm so sure now that I have a way in, that I have a
Yeah.
reason to do it. And
Mm.
yeah, that's really worth a lot to me.
Yeah, it's like a full circle.
Mm.
Like I said, it's a beautiful journey from like complete resistance to not wanting even to look at it or get coached on it, all the way to be like, I can do it. I see the path. And if I get
Mm.
stuck or if something will come up for healing, because it will, I know that I'll be okay. Because now I have this new awareness and the tools and the power, right? And all the beautiful things that I already tested and strategies that I can go back to support myself.
Yeah,
Right. So I'm not
yeah,
as
absolutely.
overwhelmed. Yeah. Okay.
Mm.
The final question that I ask every career changer. Well, I guess you're like, what would we
Ooh,
call you? You're not a proper career changer. You're like
I
career
think I'm a career returner.
career returner. You're a career returner. Oh my goodness.
Mm,
What would be your advice maybe to your past self or maybe to people who are like at the beginning of the stages similar to you who feel resistance or confusion? What would be your advice?
oh. Considering the biggest barrier I had when we started working together was that I just felt so stuck. I would definitely say to myself, if you feel stuck, the best thing you can do is to do something uncomfortable, to do something really scary, and also like to make a mistake. That's actually a brilliant thing to do. Even to aim for something that'll allow you to make a mistake. I think I
True.
would also say please don't be afraid of all the little in between steps. Like, even if you don't understand why, just go for it. And then eventually you will understand why. Um,
So good.
yeah, I think that's what I would say to myself.
Yeah, I like the last one. I like the last one. Like, don't be afraid for small steps because we all, our mind likes to think get gigantic or our minds likes to catastrophize. Do you know what I mean? And completely want to quantum leap
Hmm.
and skip through the steps. And these steps are so important because had you wanted to skip the steps, you wouldn't be here and you would not have created this new reality for yourself.
Yeah. And the last thing I would say to myself is contact Vilma.
Well, thank you for that. You guys, I promise I don't ask my clients to say that. Like, they don't get a bonus session for saying that.
No, I really mean it.
Thank
Yeah,
you
I
so
had a
much.
really great time working with you, and
Yeah.
yeah, we changed many things, and yeah, it was kind of life changing. So
Yeah. Oh, thank you so
thank
much. I
you.
enjoyed working with you so much and I love your
Mm,
energy. And I think a lot of the times for me working with you as well as someone who is, well, I guess I am strong energy sometimes. So for me, it was also about tuning in and respecting your process, but also, I guess, calling you out at times when I feel that you might be
mm,
like slipping into your old ways. And thank you for being receptive. I know it's not always easy to receive coaching because it can be triggering.
yeah, yes, but you were very gentle in how you called me out.
Okay, that's
You
good.
always you always like respected where I was at, and that
Yeah.
was really important to me. Yeah, so
Mm.
thank you.
Thank you so much. Well, thank you for
Mm.
sharing your story. It's going to be so beautiful. I can't wait to share this with the world.
Mm,
And
woo.
also, I always tell it to all of my clients, like listen back to your episode, especially when you're feeling lonely or like
Mm,
lower, because that is your essentially higher self now coming to the podcast, celebrating herself,
yeah.
celebrating her change that you've made in a year. And you'll need this podcast yourself.
Mm. Oh,
Okay.
that's really nice. I
Yeah, so
definitely
you'll have
will.
it forever there in the ether, waiting for you to
Yay.
support you. Every single client told me that. They go like, I'll just go and listen to my podcast again. I forgot.
Just go listen to my wisdom.
Yeah, let me listen to my wisdom. It's fantastic. So thank you for sharing the story. Thank
Amazing.
you for allowing me to accompany you on your journey. And I know that the future is amazing. Keep me posted. Maybe come on the podcast when you are like taking over the world with your violin.
Ooh, yes, definitely.
Okay, thanks so much, Niamh. And
Yeah.
to the listeners, I'll speak to you soon. Thank you for spending time with me today. If you resonate with this content, please subscribe and leave a little review to put a smile on my face. And if you'd like to take this work further and have my one-on-one support in switching to an aligned career path using my holistic career change method, make sure you head over to the show notes and book your free consultation call. I can't wait to meet you. Have a nice day.